Welcome everybody to TheTitleFight.com again. This is Gordy here. We got a roundtable discussion that we're about to take place with a couple of our own, Brandon Stubbs and Steve Gallegos. How you guys doing today?
Oh, very good. No complaints here besides the snow.
Still getting snow over there, huh?
I had about 5 to 9 inches depending on what part of the city you're in, so yeah, that's fun.
Yeah, I'm not missing the snow up here, so I'm looking forward to summertime already. I'm getting my beach bod ready. Need it. Well, hey, we got a couple topics in place here. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff that's been circulating in the boxing world recently, and I want to touch base on a couple of those things. We got to kick it off right. We got to try to get a laugh in here, and I'm sure both of you guys have already heard circulating around the media and everybody else busting chops over Broner and his shenanigans here. Brandon, what are your thoughts on this young cat with him running rampant wherever the road takes him here?
Well, the Broner thing, I mean, you have the incident that's actually recorded of him doing what he was doing in the strip club, which in itself is disturbing. I don't really know how to even explain that. That's just wrong all the way around. That he's biting bodyguards, trying to break up fights. I don't know, man. I don't know if this is a cry for help, an attention ploy. I don't know, but it's just weird all the way around.
Yeah, I agree. Steve, what do you think about what's been happening with him so far? I mean, we got a rising star, potentially, in the hands here of Golden Boy, and the rest of the world's kind of keeping their eyes on, and all of a sudden he's just totally off in left field. What do you think?
Well, I'm not sure what's going on in the Broner camp. Basically based on interviews that he's completed. Whether he's fighting or he's a guest. At certain fights. He's got a pretty large ego. And he needs to conduct himself better as a champion. He's probably, thinking that he's kind of a little above the law right now, with his sudden fame, and fortune. He's one of the hottest young fighters in the world, and of course he's just out having a good time and probably, getting into some trouble he shouldn't be getting into. And it's just, I don't know if he's trying to be exactly like Floyd, because Floyd was the same way early on in his career. Getting into trouble with strip clubs, getting into trouble with the law, numerous fines, lawsuits, and so forth. He just needs to probably, surround himself with some better people, and probably reevaluate his situation.
Yeah, there's, of course, the comparisons have been floating around for a while. They always have from the inception there with Broner and Mayweather, this being just another one of those. But, him being so young right now, I think maybe just a lot of it is, money and fame and almost that feeling of being invincible right now. And, it is a good idea, I believe, to reevaluate who he's around right now, because, the guy's on top of the world right now in a sense, and, he has a real possibility to make some really positive influences in people's lives and overall make a good image of himself in the boxing world and beyond, and kind of letting that go down the tubes. But I can't help but be entertained by the guy. He does some off the wall stuff inside and outside of the ring now as well. And enough said on that, I guess. We're going to be hearing about that for a while. Moving on here, we got some pretty big things in the works coming up for April. Canelo versus Trout, what we've been dubbing as the new Road Warrior in Austin Trout. What are your thoughts on this matchup coming up, Brandon?
This is going to be really the real litmus test here for Canelo. This is going to be maybe the first really legit opponent he's fought since he's really made it big that, the world will get a chance to see. He's going to finally fight somebody in his own age demographic, somebody also in his same actual natural weight. He's fighting someone who's not moving up in weight, somebody just kind of a bloated 154. He's actually fighting somebody who's legit there at that weight. For Trout, it's more of him finally getting the credit he deserves. He gained that when he fought beating pretty, decisively at that. So this is going to be huge for the winner. This is going to be Trout coming out partying to the world, or this is going to be Canelo pretty much establishing himself as the legit next big thing in the sport. he could eclipse Floyd Mayweather if he's able to go out and dominate Trout. So it's going to be a very interesting fight. It's going to definitely control which direction both these guys' careers go on from here on out.
Good point. And, if you were going to throw out a pick here, I mean, I kind of see it going 50-50, but, who would you put your money on if you were to have a choice here?
If I had to put money on it, I'm honestly going to go with Trout. I really think he's going to give Canelo some problems. The only thing that kind of makes me not want to 100% lean that direction is, will the moment be too big for him? Now, granted, he had a big moment fighting in New York against Cotto here at the end of last year. This is going to be kind of a different kind of monster. He's going to be fighting in Texas. Lord knows how the judging can go. It's one of those things to where Trout has all the tools to win, should legitimately win, but weird things can happen, and that's why I'm 75-25 Trout.
What about you, Steve?
Okay, I agree with a lot of what Brandon says, however, I don't think that Trout's going to be too intimidated by the event. I mean, like I said, Trout is the new road warrior. He's used to fighting out enemy territory. He loves to go into the other fighters' turf to fight him, just as he won the junior middleweight title by going into Monterrey, Mexico, and beating Canelo's brother. And then, of course, going into Madison Square Garden, which is the which is the house that Cotto built for boxing, large Puerto Rican fan base. Cotto's had never lost in the Garden, and Trout went in there, did his thing, was not intimidated by the event or by Cotto, and fought an excellent fight and earned that decision. So, he's going to be fighting San Antonio, Texas, a lot of Mexican fight fans, but I don't think he's going to be intimidated by that. Maybe there'll be some fans that are going to make the trip from New Mexico to come see Trout fight. But I think the more pressure is going to be on Canelo because he's, like you say, he's going to be fighting a legitimate 154-pounder, someone who's not past his prime, someone who's, in his prime. He's going to come in top shape, and also Trout has, the skills and the style to give Canelo a lot of problems. I feel that he's going to show him some movements and some angles that he's never seen before in a boxing ring. And I have a feeling that Trout's going to take Canelo into deep waters. What's going to happen when Canelo, gets into the, middle and late rounds, and he realizes he may be behind on the scorecard, or he's just not going to be able to take out Trout like he's taking out some of these other fighters. I give, Canelo does have that puncher's chance, but I really think that Trout outboxes him, shows him no fear, and takes a decision. I'm going with Trout.
We had some other news that had just recently come out. Obviously, we have Victor Ortiz making a pretty lucrative change in career path here, as he was, recently featured on Dancing with the Stars, and then all of a sudden, we heard some backlash coming from one of his previous foes, Andre Berto, coming back out at him, and then Berto making some headlines with possibly linking up here with Virgil Hunter. What are you guys' take on this whole move for Berto, who's kind of been on hiatus for a while, had some rough, tough luck these last couple outings? He's obviously going to one of the hottest trainers that's on everybody's foresight right now, who's at the helm of helping Andre Ward. Where does this put Berto at? Where does it put Ward at? Being that Virgil Hunter's actually taking on quite a bit more talent than he was in the past since his recent success with Ward. What do you got on this one, Brandon?
I think for Virgil Hunter, it's going to be important for him not to forget, what brought him to the race, and that's Andre Ward. That's the guy who kind of put him in the limelight as being this, big time trainer for what Ward has done in the ring. He can't let that escape him. I know he wants to work with other guys, and the more fighters he works with means the more money he's able to bring in. It's all about income. I respect that. But at the end of the day, he can't forget about Ward, who is, you can make an argument as being the number one pound-for-pound fighter in the world. As far as Berto going there and training possibly with Virgil Hunter, a trainer can only do so much for a fighter. The fighter's going to actually want to be in there. The fighter's actually going to want to have to do the work that's needed to become a champion. That's maybe one of the questions you got to kind of wonder sometimes about Andre Berto, is that his heart and his mind fully into it. He's taken some really hellacious beatings in these last couple of years in some of these fights. He stayed in them, he stayed competitive, but you just wonder, does he have enough to really, kind of go over the edge to be that next big thing in the welterweight division? And the jury's still out on him. I mean, I think Virgil Hunter can help, but it's going to be, at the end of the day, up to Andre Berto if he really wants this, if he really wants to do big things here in the sport.
So, do either of you see Berto as, a disappointment in any way, shape, or form? I mean, he was being built up pretty heavily, getting some good promotion behind, his promoter, and obviously his management team was instrumental in strategically positioning him in these places, and he's kind of fell short, on more than one occasion here.
Yeah. I don't know if I would call him a disappointment per se, because he was, the guys that he's fought and beat, they weren't world beaters per se. So, I mean, the management team definitely brought him up right. His handlers, a few would like to call him, definitely, made the calls to the bookies of some of his fights. But when he got in there with guys who were ready to lay it on the line, Victor Ortiz was ready to lay it on the line that night. They thought that the fight of the year that they had, it's a great fight. These guys both knew, okay, winner more than likely is going to get Floyd Mayweather. It's a big ticket item right there. He went out and he performed. When he fought Guerrero, Robert Guerrero is a guy who's tough as nails and who seemed to at times break Andre Berto's will there inside the ring. So you just kind of got to wonder. I mean, are they going to? It's all going to be about matchups from here on out for him. If they're going to match him up with guys who may not have the punching power or may not be the pure boxers, that Berto can go in there and get his bully and get some W's underneath his belt to kind of build his confidence back up. Or if they're going to kind of throw him right in there in the fire and put him in there with some of the bigger names there in the division just to get a payday. So it's going to be all interesting to see how his handlers handle it, how he takes the new training, and if he actually, the tips that he learns from Virgil Hunter, if he's actually able to use those and execute those inside of the ring.
Steve, we've got another bout coming up here on the undercard of the Mayweather-Guerrero undercard here. Mares versus Ponce de Leon, which is a pretty interesting matchup there. What's your take on this one?
I like this fight. I like this matchup a lot. Both fighters are very fun to watch. They love to come forward. They love to mix it up. And give the fans a show. Mares, is one of them all-terrain type of fighters that loves to put the pressure on. He does what he has to do to win. If he has to box, he'll box. If he has to make it a rough and tough fight like how we did with Moreno, then he'll do that too. And Ponce de Leon, has always got that major league right hand. He's got that power. He's going to be he's going to be coming forward all night. I see the way styles match up. I see two trains colliding. Making for a pretty fun fight. Mares, is obviously going to try and pose his will. Probably make it a little bit of a rough fight. Maybe fight a little bit more on the inside, or maybe outbox him some more. But I could probably give the edge to Mares based on the overall talent level and skill and his youth. But I just I just see none but fireworks in this fight, and it can possibly end up stealing the show on the May 4th card.
Well, another one that's just recently got announced on there as well, and Brandon, you had the opportunity to speak to J. Leon Love not too long ago, just a couple weeks back, and recently announced that he's going to be coming up against rough and tough Puerto Rican Gabe Rosado, who had a hell of a fight with Gennady Golovkin just recently here. What's your take on this one? I know there's a lot of back and forth, opinions going back on J. Leon Love right now, and if the verdict's still out on what he's able to bring to the table. We kind of know what Rosado brings when he comes to the table. What's your thoughts on this one?
When I first heard it, it was kind of a head scratcher. I was like, okay, it has to be some sort of error. I really think it's a little bit too early in J. Leon's career for him to take on a guy like this, given the fact of his last performance here on Showtime a couple of weeks ago in Detroit. J. Leon, he's definitely got the skills. He's definitely got the will, but he just definitely needs more polishing. I think it's kind of too early of a jump for a fight like this. Rosado's just really, he's more of he's a veteran guy who's going to know what to do in there, and I'm not sure if Love actually is going to be completely ready for that. Not to mention, Rosado has shown that he can take a punch, he can take a beating, which, you know, as a boxer, you kind of sort of need to do it sometimes. He might have took too much punishment against Triple G, but what he showed is he's not going to back down. And that's going to be something that's going to be interesting to see is, you know, if Love can't break his will, you know, we're 5-6 rounds into the fight, then what? You know, that's going to be the big question is, then what? Then how will Love react with him still being so young, so green in the game? It's a big step up for him if he's able to pull off the win. You know, big things for him. He's back into this year, going into next year, but I just think it's a little bit too early in his career for a guy like this in Rosado he's facing. I think it's just too early for him. I just don't like the matchup for Love.
I gotta agree with you on that one. You know, I think Rosado's been around for a minute. He's still a young guy too, but he's got a resume built up, even though maybe not the same type of amateur background. And you know, I think that maybe they've thrown him to the wolves here a little bit too early. You know, although, you know, we know who's piecing all this stuff together, and, you know, all politics aside, you know, I could see Rosado definitely putting the hurt to him. So we'll see what happens there. Another guy that's circulated in the past around, you know, Mayweather's camp and whatnot, who changed camps, so to speak, over here with SMS Promotions. Andre Durrell, I mean, he's been sitting on the back wall here for a minute. Always seems to come on something, and then all of a sudden, just recently, he backed off of a recent bout that they were matching him up against. What are your thoughts on Durrell's career right now and being in limbo, so to speak?
You know, Andre Durrell, your heart kind of goes out to him a little bit. You know, he had the issues, the medical issues, that made him drop out of the Super Six. Then possibly a big time matchup with Andre Ward that looks like will more than likely never happen at this rate. I just don't see it happening. Then he got kind of entangled in the money team or SMS Promotions, and he moved with SMS Promotions. He's fought a couple times on untelevised portions of cards over the last year, or is being featured on like Showbox. You just really got to kind of wonder, is his mind completely into this right now? He dropped out of his fight. He's supposed to have a couple weeks from now for Friday night fights. With things like this, you start to wonder, okay, does this guy really even want to do this anymore? That's kind of the question I'm kind of leaning towards, because I think the whole mess he's in promotion-wise is going to make him kind of second-guess and think, okay, is this the path that I want to go? Can I get out of this promotional contract? What am I doing? And that's kind of where I think he's at. He's like, what am I doing right now? And if he can't figure it out soon, the boxing world's going to forget about him, and he's going to become an afterthought. You know,
Brandon, you recently wrote something up about the whole HBO split with Golden Boy here. Just to touch base on that real quick here. I mean, what are your thoughts on how this is all going to play out on the landscape here with not only matchups, which obviously are going to be, you know, affected by it, and the fans, of course, are going to be affected by this as well, but I mean, do you see the promoters suffering from this as well, or do you think, you know, they got their buddies backing them up? You know, Golden Boy, Showtime, HBO on Top Rank, and, you know, not really seeing a whole lot of rifts there. Or is it going to, you know, actually create some bitter competition? What are your thoughts on that?
Competition, I think it's honestly going to go downhill. Short term, I think it's going to be great for some of these fighters and great for the promotion, because they can pretty much ask their asking price. You know, Top Rank can say, okay, HBO, I need X amount of money, and HBO really have no second party they can go to, like, we don't want to do that deal, we'll go with this company. Mm-hmm. They don't have that. Same way with Showtime now with Golden Boy. Golden Boy can pretty much ask their price, and they have to pay it. The thing is, especially in Golden Boy's case with Showtime, is this. Showtime is wanting the subscriptions. That's why they're making this big push. They want the same subscription numbers HBO had. They really could care less about the ratings. They look at that subscription, actually subscribing to their network. My question is this: what happens if they spend all this money to Mayweather, and Mayweather doesn't help bring in extra subscription, or the pay-per-view doesn't do as big of numbers because it's not through Showtime and at HBO? Then what? You know, what is Showtime's recourse then? You know, their parent company is Viacom, which owns CBS. Does Viacom have to start coming out of pocket more and more to help Showtime out if these fights and this deal with Golden Boy doesn't pan out? I think, if anything, HBO may leverage themselves in the long run to kind of be in a better spot. I mean, they have Top Rank, they have a decent relationship with, but that means they can also reach out more to main events, Ludabella, some of these other smaller organizations, and maybe help find the next big fighter and build that fighter up at a lower cost.
Right.
Compared to what Showtime's having to go through now with Golden Boy. Like I said, short term, great for the fighters, great for Golden Boy. Long term, I think HBO is going to come out on top if we look at this deal 5 years from now.
You know, which is part of why it might be so critical for Golden Boy and Showtime to actually have that next star that they can actually leverage on as well, which, you know, looks like they were leaning to Canelo being, or possibly Broner, you know, jumping ship over to Showtime. Broner obviously is going through some challenges here. Maybe on the public relations front, he's going to need to have some work done there. Canelo, who recently just announced that, you know, he's not going to be fighting on a Mayweather undercard ever again, just based off of, you know, their negotiations falling through with Mayweather agreeing to fight him down in September, which, you know, he already has a date set for. Who's the next star coming up? I mean, realistically, is Mayweather going to be able to finish a 6-fight deal? And, you know, if he cuts that short and decides to go bail to the Bahamas and, you know, retire for the rest of his life, who's going to be the next person coming up to the plate and taking it and running with it? What do you think, Steve?
Honestly, I think in HBO's case, they got to hope Andre Ward can stay healthy and that they can kind of find some competition for him, because Andre Ward has all the tools as a athlete that you would want to kind of put money behind. He's charismatic, he's well-spoken, stays out of trouble, and not to mention he performs in the ring. Doesn't hurt that he's an Olympian. That's something else you can add to it. He would have all the tools that would make the most sense for them to put the push behind. The problem is, who's he going to fight, and can he stay healthy? That's something that's a big question mark over the last year and a half.
Well, I just want to, encourage everybody, tune to HBO this next Saturday. Just like for Rio's Alvarado 2, early candidate for Fight of the Year. I think the winner for this fight, like I said for the first fight, boxing fans. So tune in. So let's make sure we don't forget about this one.
That's true. We got a real barn burner coming up. The first one was definitely a good scrap, so I think we're going to see another bloodbath coming up here. Rio is obviously he's been pretty vocal and upfront with predicting an earlier, KO or TKO. Brandon, you got any pre-fight predictions here on what's going to happen?
It's going to end violently. One thing that I can say, it's going to end violently, but I think my man Brandon Rios is going to do it again. I think it actually may end up being a lot shorter work for him this time around. I think he may just kind of put the pressure on him early and try to get him out of there. And maybe we can get a Bradley Rios fight later this year. Not if it happens, but that's what I'm pushing for after seeing Bradley fight here, a couple weeks back. I want to see that. That's what I want to see next. Bradley versus Rios.
I'd love to see that matchup too. I mean, Bradley, he's always been one of those guys that, he's an underdog. So, even though he's gotten a bad rap with a lot of stuff, I really wanted to see him succeed. And, seeing him come out with Provodnikov this last week, the dude just showed some guts. And, you just love to see that. I mean, granted, he took a pretty hell of a beating from Provodnikov, some heavy shots, but I'd love to see him matched up with Rios, although I think he's going to revert back to boxing. I don't think he's going to try to sit there and trade like he did with Provodnikov, but I think that'd be a great matchup too. Well, fellas, it was a pleasure. Thanks for tuning in here, and fight fans, appreciate you as well. Until next time.